The Involuntary Skeptics. Introduction: From Understanding Belief to Confronting Skepticism. In The Nature of Belief, we explored the intricate web of factors that shape human beliefs, particularly those related to religion. We examined how beliefs are formed, sustained, and sometimes dismantled, emphasizing the deeply personal and often involuntary nature of belief itself. Beliefs, as we established, are not merely intellectual positions that can be adopted or discarded at will. They are complex psychological constructs influenced by a myriad of experiences, emotions, and cognitive processes. This book, The Involuntary Skeptic: Why Belief in God Cannot Be Forced, serves as a practical sequel to that foundational exploration. Here, we delve into the other side of the coin: skepticism, particularly in the context of religion. If belief cannot be willed into existence, then what happens when belief fades, or when it never takes root at all? Can someone be held accountable for not believing in God? This book argues that they cannot. Religious skepticism is not a mere intellectual choice. It is often the result of a natural, involuntary response to questions and contradictions that arise within the framework of faith. Just as belief can be deeply ingrained and difficult to shake, so too can skepticism emerge as an unavoidable reaction to the very same experiences, evidence or lack thereof. Throughout this book, we will explore the many dimensions of religious skepticism, from its psychological and philosophical underpinnings to the ethical implications of demanding belief in the face of doubt. We will confront the idea that belief in God can be coerced or willed into existence, and we will argue instead that true belief, or the lack thereof, must come from a place of authenticity. In a world where religion continues to play a significant role in many lives, the freedom to not believe, to question, and to doubt remains a crucial aspect of individual autonomy. This book seeks to provide a comprehensive understanding of why skepticism is not only natural, but also necessary for a more honest engagement with the profound questions of existence. As we move through each chapter, we will see how skepticism emerges not as a choice, but as an inevitable outcome of honest inquiry, personal integrity, and the complex interplay of human cognition and emotion. Welcome to The Involuntary Skeptic, a journey through the mind of those who, despite their best efforts, find that they cannot force themselves to believe. Chapter 1: Skepticism as a Natural Response. Religious skepticism defined. Skepticism, in its broadest sense, is an attitude of doubt or a disposition to incredulity, either in general or toward a particular object. Religious skepticism, specifically, refers to doubt regarding religious doctrines, divine beings, and the metaphysical claims associated with faith traditions. Unlike atheism, which is the outright rejection of belief in deities, skepticism is more nuanced. It may not involve a full denial of religious claims, but rather a questioning attitude that seeks evidence, coherence, and logical consistency. Religious skepticism can manifest in various forms, ranging from mild doubts about certain tenets of a faith to profound uncertainty about the very existence of a divine being. It is a spectrum rather than a binary state, where individuals may oscillate between belief and disbelief, often in response to personal experiences, intellectual exploration, or moral considerations. Skepticism, particularly religious skepticism, often arises from a deep engagement with the very beliefs it questions. It is not, as some might assume, a superficial or rebellious stance taken against faith. Instead, it can be the result of a genuine quest for truth, a journey that begins with belief but encounters obstacles along the way. Philosophically, skepticism has roots in ancient traditions. The Greek philosopher Pyrrho is often credited as one of the founders of skepticism, advocating for a suspension of judgment due to the inherent uncertainty of knowledge. In the realm of religion, skepticism has been a part of theological discourse for centuries, with thinkers like Thomas Aquinas and Augustine wrestling with doubts and questions about the nature of God and the validity of religious experiences. In more modern times, the Enlightenment brought a wave of critical thinking and empirical inquiry that further fueled skepticism, particularly in relation to religious claims. The rise of scientific explanations for natural phenomena, coupled with the exposure of inconsistencies and contradictions within religious texts, has led many to question the tenets of their faith. To understand skepticism as a natural response, let us consider the stories of individuals who found themselves on a path of doubt, despite their initial faith. Case Study 1. The scholar, Emma, was a devout Christian who pursued a degree in theology, hoping to deepen her understanding of her faith. However, as she delved into biblical scholarship, she encountered historical inconsistencies and varying interpretations of Scripture that shook her confidence in the inerrancy of the Bible. Despite her efforts to reconcile these findings with her faith, Emma found herself drifting into skepticism. It was not a choice she made lightly, but rather a response to the evidence she could not ignore. Case Study 2. The scientist, David, grew up in a religious household but pursued a career in science. As he advanced in his studies, particularly in the field of evolutionary biology, he began to question the creationist views he had been taught. The more he learned about the mechanisms of natural selection and the age of the Earth, the more he struggled to align these facts with his religious beliefs. Eventually, his skepticism grew, not out of a desire to reject his faith, but as a natural outcome of his commitment to scientific inquiry. Case Study 3. The survivor, Sarah, experienced a profound personal tragedy that led her to question the goodness of a God who would allow such suffering. She had been a faithful believer all her life, but the loss she endured caused her to grapple with the problem of evil in a way she never had before. Her skepticism emerged not as a result of intellectual inquiry, but as an emotional and existential response to the dissonance between her experience and her religious beliefs. Skepticism as an involuntary process. These stories illustrate that skepticism often emerges not as a deliberate rejection of faith, but as an involuntary process. It is the natural consequence of encountering information, experiences, or contradictions that challenge one's beliefs. In this sense, skepticism is not a choice, but a reaction, a response to the cognitive and emotional demands of grappling with doubt. Religious skepticism, then, should not be viewed as a failure of faith or a moral shortcoming. Instead, it is a testament to the complexity of belief and the integrity of those who refuse to accept claims without sufficient reason or evidence. As we continue through this book, we will explore the various dimensions of skepticism and why it cannot be forced into submission by sheer willpower. Chapter 2. The role of reason and evidence in skepticism. Rational inquiry. At the heart of religious skepticism lies a commitment to rational inquiry. Unlike faith, which often requires belief in the unseen or unproven, skepticism demands that claims be supported by reason and evidence. This is not to suggest that faith and reason are mutually exclusive, but rather that they operate in different realms. Faith often transcends the need for empirical evidence, relying instead on personal conviction, tradition, and spiritual experience. Skepticism, however, is grounded in a different kind of inquiry, one that insists on questioning, probing, and verifying before accepting any claim as true. The process of rational inquiry involves critical thinking, where individuals analyze the validity of religious claims based on logic and available evidence. Skeptics ask questions such as, is there sufficient evidence to support the existence of God? Are the miracles described in religious texts plausible? How do we reconcile the inconsistencies within these texts? Such questions are not born out of a desire to undermine faith, but out of a sincere pursuit of truth. Science, faith. One of the primary arenas where rational inquiry comes into conflict with religious belief is in the relationship between science and faith. Historically, this relationship has been complex and contentious. Science seeks to explain the natural world through observation, experimentation, and evidence-based reasoning. It operates within the framework of natural laws and often provides explanations that challenge traditional religious narratives. For instance, the theory of evolution offers a scientific account of the development of life on Earth, one that contradicts the literal interpretation of creation stories found in many religious texts. Similarly, the Big Bang theory provides a cosmological explanation for the origin of the universe that does not require a divine creator. These scientific theories do not necessarily disprove the existence of God, but they do challenge the need for a supernatural explanation for natural phenomena. The tension between science and faith is not insurmountable, and many religious individuals find ways to reconcile their beliefs with scientific discoveries. However, for others, the evidence provided by science becomes a catalyst for skepticism. When faced with compelling scientific explanations that contradict their religious beliefs, some individuals find that their faith begins to waver. This shift is often gradual and involuntary, as the mind grapples with conflicting sources of truth. The burden of proof. A fundamental principle in both legal and philosophical contexts is the concept of the burden of proof. This principle asserts that the responsibility to prove a claim lies with the person making it, especially when the claim is extraordinary or counter to common experience. In religious discourse, the claim that a deity exists or that a particular religious doctrine is true is indeed extraordinary, as it posits realities beyond the natural world and human experience. Skeptics argue that, given the extraordinary nature of religious claims, the burden of proof lies with those who assert the existence of God or the truth of religious doctrines. Skeptics are not necessarily denying the possibility of God's existence. Rather, they are asking for sufficient evidence to justify belief. This demand for evidence is not unreasonable. It is consistent with how we approach claims in other areas of life. We do not accept extraordinary claims about the physical world without evidence. Why should we do so when it comes to metaphysical claims? However, the evidence that believers often cite, such as personal experiences, scriptural authority, or the testimony of miracles, may not meet the standards of proof required by skeptics. Personal experiences are subjective and can be interpreted in many ways. While scriptures are ancient texts, subject to various interpretations and historical criticism. Miracles, too, are often anecdotal and lack the empirical evidence that would satisfy a skeptic's demand for proof. In the absence of compelling evidence, skepticism naturally arises. It is not an act of defiance, but a rational response to the lack of proof. This skepticism is not a choice, but an outcome of the critical application of reason to religious claims. The skeptic, then, is not someone who simply refuses to believe. They are someone who cannot believe without sufficient reason to do so. Chapter 3. Cognitive Dissonance and Religious Belief. Understanding cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is a psychological concept that describes the discomfort experienced when an individual holds two or more contradictory beliefs, values, or attitudes simultaneously. This discomfort often leads to an attempt to reduce the dissonance by altering one of the conflicting beliefs or by rationalizing the inconsistency. In the context of religious belief, cognitive dissonance can occur when a person's faith-based beliefs clash with their lived experiences, moral intuition, or rational understanding of the world. For instance, a person who believes in a loving and just God may experience cognitive dissonance when confronted with the reality of widespread suffering and injustice in the world. This dissonance can lead to a crisis of faith, where the individual is forced to either reinterpret their understanding of God or abandon their belief altogether. Similarly, someone who has been raised in a religious tradition that condemns certain behaviors as sinful may struggle with cognitive dissonance if they find themselves or loved ones engaging in those behaviors. Reconciling conflicting beliefs. To reduce cognitive dissonance, individuals often employ various strategies. One common approach is to reinterpret or reframe the conflicting beliefs in a way that makes them more compatible. For example, a person might adopt a more metaphorical or allegorical interpretation of religious texts that conflict with scientific knowledge. This allows them to maintain their religious beliefs while also accepting scientific explanations for natural phenomena. Another strategy is to compartmentalize conflicting beliefs, keeping them separate in one's mind, and avoiding situations where they might come into direct conflict. For example, a person might accept the scientific consensus on evolution in their professional life while maintaining a literal belief in creationism in their religious practice. This compartmentalization can help reduce cognitive dissonance, but it may also lead to a fragmented sense of self and unresolved inner conflict. In some cases, however, the dissonance becomes too great to reconcile, leading to a significant shift in belief. When the cognitive and emotional strain of maintaining contradictory beliefs becomes overwhelming, individuals may find that they can no longer hold on to their faith. This shift is often involuntary, driven by an internal need for coherence and truth. The person may come to identify more as a skeptic, not because they chose to reject their faith, but because their commitment to intellectual and emotional honesty left them no other option. the involuntary shift. The transition from belief to skepticism is often an involuntary process, driven by the mind's inherent need for consistency and truth. As cognitive dissonance grows, the individual may find it increasingly difficult to maintain their religious beliefs, especially if those beliefs are in direct conflict with their experiences or understanding of the world. This involuntary shift can be deeply unsettling, as it often involves the loss of a central aspect of one's identity and worldview. For many, this shift is not a choice but a necessity. It is the result of an honest confrontation with the contradictions between belief and reality. As the dissonance becomes unbearable, the only way to achieve cognitive and emotional harmony is to let go of the beliefs that no longer seem tenable. This process can be painful, as it may involve the loss of community, identity, and a sense of purpose. However, it can also lead to a newfound sense of freedom and authenticity, as the individual embraces a worldview that is more consistent with their understanding of reality. In this way, skepticism is not a deliberate rejection of faith, but an involuntary response to the cognitive and emotional demands of grappling with dissonance. It is a natural and necessary outcome of the mind's pursuit of truth and coherence. As we will explore in the following chapters, this process of involuntary skepticism has profound ethical and social implications, both for the individual and for the broader society. Chapter 4, The Ethics of Skepticism, Moral Responsibility and Belief. Belief is often considered a matter of moral responsibility, especially in religious contexts where faith is seen as a virtue and disbelief as a moral failing. However, if belief is involuntary, if it arises not from a deliberate choice, but from an honest engagement with evidence and reason, then holding someone morally accountable for their beliefs becomes problematic. Can we truly fault someone for not believing in God if their skepticism is the result of a genuine and sincere pursuit of truth? This question challenges the traditional view that belief is a moral obligation. If belief cannot be willed into existence, then it cannot be morally required. Instead, we must consider the ethics of sincerity and intellectual honesty. What matters is not whether someone believes, but whether they are sincere in their search for truth and willing to follow the evidence wherever it leads, even if that means embracing skepticism. Respecting the skeptic's journey. The journey of skepticism is often fraught with challenges, including social stigma, loss of community, and personal turmoil. Given the involuntary nature of this journey, it is important to approach skeptics with empathy and respect, rather than judgment. Skepticism is not a rebellion against faith, but a response to the honest engagement with doubt and uncertainty. Respecting the skeptic's journey means acknowledging the courage it takes to question deeply held beliefs, especially when those beliefs are intertwined with one's identity, culture, and community. It also means recognizing that skepticism is not a final destination, but an ongoing process of inquiry and exploration. Skeptics are often in a state of seeking, open to new information and perspectives, even if they have currently settled in a position of doubt. Tolerance and pluralism. In a pluralistic society where diverse beliefs coexist, it is essential to cultivate tolerance and understanding between believers and skeptics. This requires a shift in how we view skepticism, not as a threat to faith, but as a legitimate and valuable stance that contributes to the richness of human thought and experience. Tolerance does not mean agreement, but it does mean recognizing the right of individuals to question, doubt, and seek their own understanding of truth. Pluralism, in this sense, is not merely the coexistence of different beliefs, but the active engagement with and respect for those who hold differing views. It involves creating a space where skeptics and believers can dialogue, share their perspectives, and learn from each other. This kind of engagement enriches both sides, fostering a deeper understanding of the complexities of belief and disbelief. Ethical implications for religious communities. For religious communities, the presence of skeptics poses both a challenge and an opportunity. On one hand, skepticism can be seen as a threat to the cohesion and stability of the community. On the other hand, it can serve as a catalyst for deeper reflection and growth. Religious communities that respond to skepticism with openness and curiosity rather than defensiveness are more likely to thrive in a pluralistic world. This involves creating an environment where questions and doubts are welcomed rather than suppressed. It means encouraging honest dialogue and providing support for those who are struggling with their faith. By respecting the skeptic's journey, religious communities can become spaces of genuine exploration and growth, rather than places of rigid dogma. In this way, the ethics of skepticism are not only about respecting the individual's right to doubt, but also about fostering a culture of inquiry and openness within religious communities. As we will explore in the following chapters, this ethical approach has profound implications for how we think about belief, doubt, and the search for truth in a diverse and complex world. Chapter 5: The Psychological Landscape of Skepticism. The Emotional Impact of Doubt. Skepticism, particularly when it concerns deeply held religious beliefs, is not just an intellectual experience, but also a profoundly emotional one. The journey from belief to skepticism often involves a complex interplay of emotions, including fear, sadness, and sometimes even anger. These emotions can stem from the perceived loss of certainty, community, or a sense of purpose that religious belief provides. For many, the emotional impact of doubt is exacerbated by the social and cultural context in which their beliefs are embedded. In communities where faith is a central part of identity and belonging, expressing doubt can lead to feelings of isolation, rejection, or betrayal. The emotional weight of skepticism can make the journey particularly challenging, as individuals navigate not only their internal struggles, but also the external pressures to conform. Coping with existential anxiety. One of the most significant emotional challenges that skeptics face is existential anxiety. This form of anxiety arises from the confrontation with fundamental questions about the meaning of life, the nature of existence, and the inevitability of death. Religious beliefs often provide comfort and answers to these existential questions, offering a sense of purpose, moral guidance, and the promise of an afterlife. Skepticism, on the other hand, can strip away these comforting narratives, leaving individuals to grapple with uncertainty and the fear of the unknown. Coping with existential anxiety is a crucial aspect of the skeptic's journey. Some may find solace in philosophical or scientific explorations of meaning, while others may turn to art, literature, or relationships to find a sense of purpose and connection. The process of finding new sources of meaning can be deeply personal and varied, reflecting the diverse ways in which individuals seek to make sense of their lives in the absence of religious belief. The role of community and support. While skepticism can lead to feelings of isolation, it is important to recognize the value of community and support during this journey. Just as religious communities offer fellowship and shared values, there are communities of skeptics and freethinkers who provide a space for dialogue, support, and mutual understanding. These communities can play a vital role in helping individuals navigate the emotional challenges of skepticism, offering both intellectual and emotional support. In recent years, the rise of online platforms and social media has made it easier for skeptics to connect with like-minded individuals. Forums, discussion groups, and organizations dedicated to secularism and humanism offer spaces where skeptics can share their experiences, ask questions, and find solidarity in their journey. These communities can be particularly valuable for those who feel isolated or marginalized in their immediate social circles. The importance of community in the skeptic's journey cannot be overstated. Just as belief is often nurtured within a communal context, so too can skepticism be supported by a network of individuals who share similar doubts and questions. These communities provide not only emotional support, but also opportunities for intellectual growth and exploration. Chapter 6: The Social Implications of Skepticism. Skepticism and social stigma. In many societies, religious belief is not only common, but also socially normative. Skepticism, particularly when it leads to atheism or agnosticism, can therefore be met with suspicion, misunderstanding, or outright hostility. The social stigma associated with skepticism can manifest in various ways, from subtle social exclusion to overt discrimination or vilification. For individuals who publicly express their doubts or disbelief, the consequences can be significant, affecting relationships, careers, and even personal safety in some cases. The stigma of skepticism is often rooted in the perception that religious belief is synonymous with moral virtue. while disbelief is associated with moral relativism or nihilism. This perception is particularly strong in societies where religion plays a central role in defining social norms and values. As a result, skeptics may be viewed as threats to social cohesion, accused of undermining the moral fabric of society or leading others astray. Navigating social relationships. Given the social stigma associated with skepticism, navigating relationships can be a delicate and challenging process for skeptics. Family friends and colleagues who hold strong religious beliefs may react negatively to expressions of doubt or disbelief, leading to tension or estrangement. For some skeptics, the decision to disclose their beliefs or to remain in the closet can be fraught with anxiety and fear of rejection. Maintaining relationships in the face of differing beliefs requires a careful balance of honesty and respect. It involves finding ways to communicate one's skepticism without alienating or offending others, while also setting boundaries to protect one's own intellectual and emotional integrity. For some, this may mean avoiding discussions about religion altogether, while for others, it may involve seeking out common ground or shared values that transcend religious differences. In some cases, relationships may evolve as both skeptics and believers find ways to coexist despite their differences. This can lead to a deeper understanding and respect for each other's perspectives, even if agreement on religious matters is not possible. However, there are also situations where the differences are too great to reconcile, and relationships may suffer as a result. The social implications of skepticism are complex and multifaceted, reflecting the diverse ways in which individuals and communities respond to doubt and disbelief. The impact on public discourse. Skepticism also has broader social implications, particularly in the realm of public discourse. In a pluralistic society, where individuals hold a wide range of beliefs and values, the presence of skepticism can enrich public debates by challenging assumptions, questioning dogmas, and promoting critical thinking. Skeptics play a crucial role in advocating for secularism, the separation of church and state, and the protection of individual rights, particularly the right to freedom of thought and expression. However, the public expression of skepticism can also provoke backlash, particularly in societies where religious beliefs are deeply entrenched and intertwined with national identity or political power. Skeptics who challenge religious norms or question the role of religion in public life may be accused of being anti-religious or of seeking to undermine societal values. This tension between skepticism and religious conservatism is a recurring theme in many contemporary debates, from discussions about education and science policy to issues of human rights and social justice. Despite these challenges, the contribution of skepticism to public discourse is invaluable. By questioning the status quo and advocating for evidence-based reasoning, skeptics help to create a more open, inclusive, and thoughtful society. Their role is not to eliminate religious belief, but to ensure that all ideas, including religious ones, are subject to scrutiny and debate. In this way, skepticism contributes to a healthier and more dynamic public sphere where diverse perspectives can coexist and be explored. Chapter 7: Skepticism and Personal Freedom. The liberation of letting go. For many people, skepticism can lead to a profound sense of liberation. The process of questioning and ultimately letting go of religious beliefs can free individuals from the constraints of dogma, allowing them to explore new ways of thinking and living. This sense of freedom is not just intellectual, but also emotional and existential. By rejecting beliefs that no longer resonate, skeptics open themselves up to new possibilities, experiences, and understandings of the world. The liberation of skepticism is often accompanied by a sense of personal empowerment. Without the need to conform to religious doctrines or the expectations of religious communities, skeptics can shape their own values, make their own decisions, and take responsibility for their own lives. This autonomy is a key aspect of personal freedom, allowing individuals to live in accordance with their own understanding of truth, rather than adhering to prescribed beliefs. However, this freedom also comes with challenges. The absence of religious belief can leave a void that needs to be filled with new sources of meaning and purpose. For some, this can lead to a period of existential uncertainty, where old certainties are replaced by new questions and doubts. But for others, the freedom that comes with skepticism is itself a source of meaning. offering the opportunity to explore life's mysteries without the constraints of religious dogma. The ethics of intellectual autonomy. Intellectual autonomy is a core value for skeptics. It involves the right to think for oneself, to question received wisdom, and to arrive at one's own conclusions based on evidence and reason. This autonomy is not just about rejecting religious belief, it is about cultivating a mindset that values critical thinking and open-mindedness. In this sense, skepticism is not merely a rejection of faith, but an affirmation of intellectual freedom. The ethics of intellectual autonomy also involve respecting the autonomy of others. Just as skeptics value their own right to question and doubt, they must also respect the rights of others to hold different beliefs, even if those beliefs seem irrational or unfounded. This respect is a crucial aspect of pluralism, where diverse beliefs and perspectives coexist in a society that values freedom of thought and expression. However, intellectual autonomy also carries responsibilities. Skeptics must be willing to engage with opposing views, to consider evidence that challenges their own assumptions, and to be open to the possibility of changing their minds. This openness is a key aspect of intellectual humility, which recognizes that no one has a monopoly on truth and that all beliefs, including skeptical ones, are subject to revision based on new evidence and insights. Freedom and responsibility. The freedom that comes with skepticism is not without its responsibilities. Skeptics must navigate the complexities of living without the moral and existential certainties that religion often provides. This involves making ethical decisions based on reason, empathy, and a commitment to the well-being of others, rather than relying on religious doctrines or divine commandments. This responsibility also extends to the broader society. Skeptics must consider the impact of their beliefs and actions on others, particularly in a pluralistic world where diverse beliefs coexist. This involves finding ways to engage in constructive dialogue, to advocate for secular values in a way that respects religious diversity, and to contribute to a society where all individuals can freely pursue their own understanding of truth and meaning. In this way, the freedom of skepticism is not just about rejecting religious belief, but about embracing a life of intellectual and moral responsibility. It is about living authentically, in accordance with one's own understanding of truth, while also recognizing the rights and dignity of others. As we will explore in the next chapters, this commitment to authenticity is a central aspect of the skeptic's journey, shaping how skeptics navigate the challenges and opportunities of a life without religious belief. Chapter 8, The Role of Doubt in Personal Growth. Doubt as a catalyst for growth. Doubt is often seen as a negative force, something to be overcome or suppressed. However, for skeptics, doubt is not a weakness, but a strength. It is a catalyst for personal growth, pushing individuals to question their assumptions, explore new perspectives, and seek deeper understanding. In this sense, doubt is not the opposite of faith, but a necessary part of the journey toward greater wisdom and self-awareness. The role of doubt in personal growth is particularly evident in the process of deconversion, where individuals transition from religious belief to skepticism. This process is often marked by periods of intense doubt, where old certainties are called into question and new possibilities are explored. For many, this journey is not just about rejecting religious beliefs, but about discovering new ways of thinking, living, and relating to the world. Doubt also plays a crucial role in intellectual and moral development. By questioning received wisdom and challenging dogmas, skeptics open themselves up to new ideas and experiences that can lead to personal transformation. This process of growth is not always easy, as it often involves confronting uncomfortable truths and letting go of deeply held beliefs. However, it is through this process that individuals can develop a more nuanced, mature, and authentic understanding of themselves and the world. The courage to question. Embracing doubt requires courage. It involves stepping into the unknown, challenging the status quo, and facing the possibility that one's beliefs may be wrong. This courage is particularly important in a world where conformity is often rewarded and dissent is discouraged. For skeptics, the courage to question is not just about intellectual integrity, but about living authentically, in accordance with one's own understanding of truth. The courage to question is also a form of resistance against authoritarianism. and groupthink. It involves standing up for the right to think for oneself, even in the face of social pressure or institutional power. This resistance is not just about rejecting religious authority, but about challenging any system of thought that seeks to impose beliefs without evidence or reason. For many skeptics, the courage to question is a source of empowerment, allowing them to take control of their own beliefs and values. It is a way of asserting their intellectual autonomy and refusing to be dictated by external authorities. This empowerment is not just about rejecting religious belief, but about embracing a life of inquiry. And growth, embracing uncertainty. One of the most challenging aspects of skepticism is embracing uncertainty. Without the certainties that religious belief often provides, skeptics must learn to live with ambiguity, doubt, and the unknown. This can be a difficult and unsettling experience, particularly for those who have been accustomed to clear answers and definitive truths. However, embracing uncertainty is also a source of freedom and possibility. It allows individuals to explore new ideas and perspectives without the constraints of dogma. It opens up a world of intellectual and existential exploration, where the search for truth is ongoing and ever-evolving. For skeptics, uncertainty is not something to be feared, but embraced as a natural and necessary part of the human experience. In this way, the role of doubt in personal growth is not just about questioning beliefs, but about embracing the uncertainties and ambiguities of life. It is about developing the resilience and courage to live without easy answers, and to find meaning and purpose in the ongoing search for truth. As we will explore in the next chapters, this commitment to growth and authenticity is a central aspect of the skeptic's journey, shaping how skeptics navigate the challenges and opportunities of a life without religious belief. Chapter 9, The Struggle for Conviction and the Demand for Authenticity. Religion's challenge in convincing skeptics. Religious doctrines have long held a prominent place in human society, offering explanations for the mysteries of existence, providing moral guidance, and fostering a sense of community and belonging. However, for many skeptics, these doctrines fail to provide convincing answers to their fundamental questions. The skeptical mind, driven by a demand for evidence, logical coherence, and experiential consistency, often finds religious claims lacking in persuasive power. One of the central issues is that religious belief often demands a level of faith that skeptics find untenable. Faith, by definition, involves belief in the absence of empirical evidence. And for skeptics, this is where religion falters. The promise of spiritual experiences, the authority of sacred texts, and the testimony of religious communities may be compelling for believers, but they do not satisfy the skeptic's criteria for truth. Without verifiable evidence, skeptics remain unconvinced, viewing religious claims as speculative at best. This failure to convince is not merely an intellectual issue, but also an existential one. Skeptics are often deeply concerned with the authenticity of their beliefs. They refuse to accept propositions that do not align with their understanding of reality, even if those propositions offer comfort or social acceptance. This commitment to authenticity is a defining characteristic of the skeptical stance, demanding that one's beliefs be rooted in what one genuinely perceives as true, rather than what one is told to believe. The imperative of respect and tolerance. Given the deep-seated differences in how skeptics and religious believers arrive at their convictions, respect and tolerance become ethical imperatives. It is crucial to recognize that belief, or the lack thereof, is not a matter of simple choice, but a complex interplay of reasoning, experience, and personal disposition. Skeptics cannot be coerced into belief any more than believers can be coerced into skepticism. Each side must respect the other's right to follow their own intellectual and spiritual path. For skeptics, this respect involves acknowledging the sincere faith of religious individuals. Even if religious beliefs seem irrational or unfounded to the skeptic, they are often deeply meaningful to those who hold them. Similarly, religious individuals must understand that skepticism is not simply a rejection of faith for the sake of rebellion, but a genuine and principled stance based on the skeptic's experience and understanding of the world. Mutual tolerance is essential in a pluralistic society where diverse beliefs coexist. It involves allowing space for different perspectives, even when those perspectives are fundamentally at odds. This tolerance is not about agreeing with or endorsing the other's beliefs, but about recognizing the right of each individual to hold their own convictions without fear of judgment or persecution. Blamelessness in belief. At the heart of the issue is the recognition that belief is not a matter of moral failing or superiority, but a deeply personal journey. No one should be blamed for their sincere beliefs, whether they are religious or skeptical. This blamelessness is rooted in the understanding that belief is not something that can be willed or forced. It is the result of how each person interacts with the world, processes information, and arrives at their own conclusions. For skeptics, this means understanding that religious believers are not ignorant or deluded, but are following a path that makes sense to them. For religious individuals, it means recognizing that skeptics are not immoral or lost, but are pursuing truth in a way that is consistent with their own principles. In this way, both sides can coexist peacefully, each respecting the other's right to believe as they see fit. Chapter 10. The ethical imperatives of a divided world. Religion's ethical dilemma in converting skeptics. One of the most significant ethical challenges facing religious institutions is their approach to skeptics. For centuries, many religions have sought to convert non-believers, often viewing skepticism as a threat to spiritual truth. However, this approach is fraught with ethical dilemmas. The failure to convert skeptics is not just a matter of strategy, but speaks to a deeper issue: the inability of religious arguments to meet the demands of skeptical inquiry. For skeptics, religious doctrines that cannot be substantiated by evidence or reason are not compelling. Attempts to convert skeptics using emotional appeals to authority, or promises of spiritual rewards often fall flat, as they do not address the core concerns of the skeptic. This failure highlights a fundamental disconnect between the way religious believers and skeptics approach truth and belief. In light of this disconnect, it becomes ethically imperative for religious individuals and institutions to respect the autonomy of skeptics. Rather than viewing skepticism as a failure or a challenge to be overcome, it should be seen as a legitimate perspective, deserving of the same respect as any deeply held belief. This shift in attitude is crucial for fostering a more tolerant and pluralistic society, where individuals are free to explore their own paths without fear of judgment or coercion. The role of skeptics in promoting respect and tolerance. Skeptics, too, have a role to play in promoting respect and tolerance. While skepticism often involves challenging religious beliefs, it is important for skeptics to do so in a way that is respectful and constructive. This means recognizing the value that religion holds for many people, even if one disagrees with its tenets. Moreover, skeptics must advocate for a society where belief and non-belief are treated with equal respect. This involves challenging societal norms that privilege religious belief over skepticism, as well as advocating for the rights of non-believers to live authentically without discrimination or stigma. In this way, skeptics can contribute to a more inclusive society where all individuals are free to believe or disbelieve as they see fit. The necessity of blamelessness in belief. Blamelessness in belief is not just a philosophical stance, but a practical necessity in a divided world. In a society where diverse beliefs coexist, it is essential that individuals are not judged or blamed for their sincere convictions. This blamelessness is crucial for fostering mutual understanding and respect, allowing for peaceful coexistence despite deep differences. For religious believers, this means recognizing that skeptics are not morally deficient or spiritually lost, but are simply following a different path. For skeptics, it means understanding that religious believers are not ignorant or irrational, but are making sense of the world in a way that works for them. In this way, both sides can move beyond judgment and blame, fostering a society where individuals are free to pursue truth in their own way. Conclusion: a call for mutual respect in a divided world. The journey of skepticism is often marked by a struggle for authenticity, a refusal to accept beliefs that do not align with one's understanding of truth. For skeptics, religion's failure to provide convincing evidence or compelling arguments is not a matter of choice, but a result of deeply held principles. In a world where belief and non-belief are often at odds, it is crucial that both sides approach each other with respect and understanding. Religious believers must recognize that skepticism is not a threat to be eradicated, but a legitimate perspective that deserves respect. Skeptics, in turn, must acknowledge the deep significance that religion holds for many and engage with it in a way that is respectful and constructive. This mutual respect is not just an ethical imperative, but a practical necessity in a world where diverse beliefs must coexist. At the heart of this respect is the recognition that belief is not something that can be willed or forced. It is a deeply personal journey, shaped by individual experiences, reasoning, and understanding. No one should be blamed for their beliefs, whether they are religious or skeptical. Instead, we must strive to create a society where all individuals are free to pursue their own paths without fear of judgment or coercion. In this way, the journey of skepticism is not just about rejecting religious belief, but about embracing a life of intellectual and moral integrity. In a world that values truth, reason, and mutual respect, it is about living authentically, in accordance with one's own understanding of truth, while also recognizing the rights and dignity of others. And ultimately, it is about contributing to a more open, just, and thoughtful world where all individuals are free to believe or disbelieve as they see fit.